dog in your life is thinking? Well, join me, Liz Murdoch, animal communicator, talking with the dogs and finding out what dogs want people in their lives to know and understand. I've spent my life talking and listening to animals. So if you consider yourself a dog person or just happen to have a dog, I'm here to help you learn how to talk or listen to the dogs in your life. I chat with people too, sharing stories and tips on exactly how animal communication or being a dog whisperer makes an impact at home or when working with the dogs. So welcome to Talking with the Dogs podcast, a place where we uncover exactly what dogs want us to know and celebrate that every dog has a story. So welcome to the 60th episode of Talking with the Dogs. I'm Liz Murdoch, and today we are going to have a solo episode where I go back to the very beginning and talk about me and my dogs and my work as an animal communicator, interspecies communicator. And I wanted to sort of catch people up where I am since I started this podcast. It's been, I can't believe it, about 3 years. It's taken me some time to get to 60 episodes, but thankfully I've had quite a few dog clients and I'm working on a variety of projects. So I have taken the slow route, I guess, but I'm still committed. I'm still podcasting and I'm excited to share with you. And those of you who are new and have maybe never listened to the story of how I got started, but in any event, I want to do a bit of that and also tell you where I am. Animal communication in the last 3 years has really become more widely accepted and explored, and people are willing to talk about the fact that they are talking to their dog and they are actually understanding their dog better and getting messages, or their cat or any other animal. I work primarily with dogs. I have quite a few cat clients. I talked to a tortoise today, and she had a lot to say as well. But I'm going to stick with the dogs for now. And the reason I am an animal communicator, I have a background. I got my master's in education and communication. I worked at the United Nations in conflict resolution for a time while I was living in New York. And I have since found that I really want to help dog people with their communication issues and their conflicts that they have with other dog people in their home. Usually that's where it is. People disagree on, does the dog belong on the couch? Is it okay to sleep with the dog? And when people have their differences, the dogs are affected and the dogs get confused. And it comes up sometimes in my sessions. And I just want to help people. I don't have a preference. If you don't want your dog in the bed, that's fine. But if you do, and you want to find a way to make it work and the dog is comfortable and not just a bed hog, I'm here to help. So why am I an animal communicator still? Because I've become even more passionate about it. And I have seen over and over again, as most of you know who are clients of mine, I don't send out emails. I don't hard sell. I run on referrals, and I love my repeat customers and clients, and I am committed to helping people. And I do it because it is so gratifying when I have worked with somebody and they call up and they say, is it my dog's time? It's dying. Their dog is dying and they don't know what to do to help their dog. And I can tune into their dog and we can find out that, no, your dog is not ready. Your dog wants to have another afternoon in the sun. And the person will say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're saying that. We just spent the afternoon in the sun. And I'll say, well, your dog wants to do it one more time. Or whatever specific details that dogs share, that I see an image, I get a knowing sense that I describe in detail to the people, and they're able to use it to solve a problem. And I'm going to keep doing that as long as people are asking for the support and it makes a difference for them. And I feel like, wow, that was so meaningful. And I like to feel like I've done something meaningful. I had a near-death experience And I was in a very bad car accident many years ago, and it left me with the urge that I need to do something that makes a difference. And for me, that was an exploration. And where I am now, making a difference, helping dog people is what matters. So I'm going to keep doing that. And yes, the cats and the horses and the turtles. So that's why I'm doing this, because it makes a difference to enough people, and it's gratifying. What else can I tell you that I want you to know? How I work is a big question. And animal communicators, interspecies communicators, I know quite a few. I know of them. I follow their work. We follow each other. And I do not need to see a picture. I love connecting with an animal on Zoom is my favorite. That's what's come out of the pandemic, where we can say, hi, Fido, it's me, Liz. I'm an animal communicator. You can tell me whatever you want, and I explain how it's going to work. I never ask for people to share their questions, what it is. I don't want to know anything about your dog, only because I don't want you to think that I've been influenced by something you've said, because I know that the skeptic in you, the small part, will say, well, maybe she knew because we told her that we've had our dog for 10 years and he's getting old. I never know how old my dogs are, where they live, who lives in the house, nothing. I like to know that your dog's name is so-and-so and who's on the call. Is it just you? If there are two people that live in the house and the other person's not on the call, that person is pretty much not part of the conversation. If the person wants to join and listen, that's fine. But it's the chat session. I call my sessions chat sessions. The chat session is really between the dog that's on the call. Sometimes they bring a friend. There's multiple dogs. That's fine. To me, it's however you want to use the time. So if people book a 30-minute session, we'll talk to whoever wants to talk. And typically, when multi-animal homes, the animals will let me know. And I'll say, oh, I think the cat wants to go first. I think the bigger dog wants to go first. There's always a knowing sense of who wants to go first. So don't stress about that. How I work, I get the information, I introduce myself. I like to see the picture to connect through the eyes. I don't need any indication of a big fancy house, a dog out in the farmyard, nothing. Just send me a picture that you like of your dog. And I like to tune in through the eyes, and I like to know your dog's name. And then I tell people to write down your questions, but don't tell them to me. Do not tell me your questions. Write them down. You can refer to them and I will make sure they're answered. But what's fun is that when I talk to Fido and I say, okay, let's see what's going on. Typically, the dogs answer the questions before we even get to them. And midway through a session, I will say, is there a question on your list that you want to ask? Or your dog is saying there's something we haven't gone deep enough or we haven't touched upon. And we always do that. But I like to that the dogs go first, so that if your dog is saying, and this comes out, I don't feel as comfortable as I'd like to in the car, which is frequent. So you haven't said anything about your dog in the car, but if that comes up, I find that people are more likely to take it seriously if it's been nagging at them, but the dog brought it up and shared about the car ride. And that's why I let the dogs go first. And we work towards getting everything that the dogs want to say on how they're feeling, what their favorite things are. I'll say, what do you have to say about your food situation? And some dogs don't really care. And some are very particular. And they will say, this comes up a lot, I don't need so many different kinds of treats. I don't need so many. I feel better. My tummy feels better on just, and then they'll describe. Some dogs like the one in the crinkly package. Some dogs like, they'll describe what it looks like. So when we let the dogs go first, then we get the information that is most transformative often, because the animals have shared it first and the people are more inclined to, oh, wow, I know exactly what my dog is talking about. I know that treat. Yes, I buy too many different kinds of treats because I enjoy doing that, but I've noticed that my dog prefers treat X. So um, that's how I work with the animals that way. What I recommend for somebody, because people will say, I'm interested in working with you. I'm just not sure. My husband's not ready. We're going to think about it, but I had questions. What I recommend is write down your list of what you want to know and your questions and your concerns. And then ask an animal communicator, whether it's me or anybody else, how they work. And if you are skeptical, then make sure you can work with somebody who answers your questions. There are some animal communicators that will write down their what their messages that they get, but you don't really have a chance to ask clarifying questions. So it's good to, as you browse around, find somebody who resonates with you. It's just like, finding I mean, whether it's a therapist or, anything that depends, your favorite restaurant. Some people are going to want to go to a certain type of food, others want a different kind of food. This kind of thing can be your preference. I specialize in dogs. If you are looking for somebody who specializes in horses, then maybe I would be okay, but I'm not specializing in horses and I can't go as deep as somebody who knows the nuances of a horse. So, what I do that I would love doing is getting very specific so that my people, I had a woman who I was describing shoes to, that the dog was sharing something important about the shoes. And she kept questioning it. And she goes, I'm not sure what you mean. And I was like, well, and I kept describing them. And then I described the location. And there was an audience watching this conversation. And she said, do you think that my dog could mean slippers? And I was like, yes, actually, it could be slippers because I just see the outline of the shoes as I'm describing the image. And the audience went nuts. And yes, to her, it suddenly, the whole message of what I'd been describing to her answered a question that she had not shared with me, but it was very, very profound and meaningful to her. And that's why I think that being able to ask a question to somebody who's giving you messages allows room for clarification. Not that I'm switching my like, oh yeah, I meant slippers. I did not mean slippers. I was saying shoes, but I meant something that a person wears on their foot. That's what I meant, but I wasn't going as specific enough for her. Now, there have been times for her to get to slippers. I did not see the difference. There have been times where people have questioned, could you mean this? And say, no, like a woman who was asking about a sign from her dog that had passed away. And I said, I'm getting that your dog says when there are church bells, you know that your dog is with you. And she said, but I've never heard church bells. And I said, okay, let me go back and check. And I got thoughtful. I aligned myself in a way of being fully centered and present. And I asked this dog, okay, she's not understanding what you mean by church bells. Are you meaning that when there are church bells that you are with her? This is a dog that had passed away. And I got a yes. And I said, yes, your dog is saying when there are church bells. And she said, oh, because she wanted a different answer. And I said, no, I'm really getting church bells. And as I said that, there were church bells across the park that went chiming crazily. And she was with her husband, and the three of us, it was an outside event. The three of us, all our eyes went wide. And I was like, oh, so we just went on. And then again, towards the end of our time together, she said, okay, is there anything else besides the bells that my dog is using as a sign? And I said, well, let me check. And I said, okay, is there anything? And I go, I keep getting these bells. And the bells went off again. So that's an instance when I will stick with what the animal is telling me. Now, this was an afternoon in a park. That was the only time that the bells went off that entire afternoon. I think I spoke with about 20 different couples and animals, and that was the only single time. So yes, there are times where I will sort of gently push back and say, this is the description I'm getting from the animal. And I do that because I'm trying to advocate for the animal. My background has been working with rescues as an animal evaluator. I did animal assisted therapy where I was a partner with my dog, and I had to advocate for him when he was done, or if he had a preference in an alert that he was showing me in working with a particular patient. We were working with a larger team, and I had to advocate for my dog. And so I sort of come from the side of, if an animal is giving me a message, I want to get it accurate, that it's meaningful to the person to use in a meaningful way in the person's relationship, rather than please them and let's try and modify the dog's behavior or something. I'm trying to advocate for a message I'm getting from a dog so they can use it in a positive way in their relationship. So that's how I see animal communication as a really important tool that can transform a relationship with a dog and its person. And you can substitute dog if you want, but I'm just wanting to clarify. So what else can I tell you that people might want to know? How to understand your dog is a question I get, and I do weave that into my chat sessions, and I will do another episode on that topic, because there are a lot of different ways to understand a dog besides the body language or the buttons. There's the intuitive way, but different people receive messages differently, and I don't want to gloss over that in this episode. So this episode, I am going to talk more about the work that I do specifically with the dogs to help people understand how an animal communicator, specifically me, works, to help clarify. So what else? I wrote some notes. You want to know more? Why is my dog suddenly acting this way is a huge question. I got a text from a client the other day. She was panicked. Her dog, she goes, help. My dog is trying to tell me something and I don't know what it is. Can you help me? And I've worked with this dog before, and I was like, yes, hold on a second. So I sat down, I take a breath, I clear everything out, and I'm like, okay. And for me, I say the dog's name. So I'm just going to say, Jackson. We'll pick Jackson. That's not this dog's name, but I keep my dogs very private for whatever reason. But so I'm going to say, Jackson, what's going on? And immediately, I did not have a picture of this dog at this point. I know this dog. I said, Jackson, what's going on? And I could immediately feel that this dog was panting. And I texted her, and I felt a knowing sense. Animal communicators cannot diagnose. So I had to be very careful. And I said, I feel like it's an organ. I cannot tell if it's the heart or the liver, the pancreas, but something is straining to work at its optimum pace. It feels like an organ. And because I felt that in my body. And I said, it's struggling. And your dog is panting. Is that right? Your dog is panting. And she texted back. She goes, yes, she is panting. Or he anyway, doesn't matter. The dog was panting. And I said, something's not right. I think you need to check with a vet. Is it hot? It's hot. I think, how hot is your house? So her house was 80 degrees. So that is too hot for a dog. And at least her dog it was. So she made adjustments. She checked in with the vet and she figured out what to do. And her dog was no longer panting and was much calmer and was no longer looking at her desperately trying to get help.